So he's got done talking about how Kirk Cignetti came to the Big Ten. One of the key appeals was the media rights deal and everything. I tend to think that Bob Chesney probably had a key reason or a key appeal in the media rights deal as well. And UCLA they are a program that we have talked about, thanks to Jeff when he was on here more often, as being a better program than a lot of people gave them credit for. When you look at the money that the Big Ten is bringing in right now, when you look at the donors and the boosters that UCLA has, even though that athletic department has not always been the best run, they were going to be able to pay some dudes, and they have done that here, Zach. In 24/7 Sports, they are top 5 nationally in the 2027 recruiting rankings. Now, yes, I'm aware it's only May. I'm not saying that they're going to have a top 5 class for sure, but right now they do have a very, very highly touted class, second in the Big Ten behind only USC. So USC fans don't feel like you're insulted here. You are obviously higher. I also think UCLA is probably going to bring in a bigger class than USC. I think USC is probably only bringing in like 16 guys, brought in 35 last year. So might be UCLA's turn to bring in a whole bunch of guys. We'll see. And then on Rivals and On Three, they are 11th, either 11th or 10th. I think Notre Dame may have passed them today because On Three does their rankings a little bit differently. They recently added a 3-star running back, and the way they do the averages and stuff, they may have fallen behind Notre Dame, which is just kind of interesting the way On Three does their rankings. But anyway, they have multiple 4-star commits already, 7 depending on where you look, 8 on Rivals, 4-star commits or more. I mean, Zach, it's been incredibly impressive. They've been beating out Blue Bloods. Alabama and Notre Dame were both in on what's his name, the Khalil Terry, the safety. He actually flipped from Notre Dame to UCLA. Jerry Outhouse Jr. He flipped from Georgia, essentially. He decommitted and then committed to UCLA, essentially flipped to them. Like, we can go through a number of other guys as well, but those are just kind of 2 guys to highlight off the top. Zach, it's pretty incredible what Bob Chesney has been doing lately. Do you feel like this is foreshadowing for what is coming this season for UCLA?
I think it could. I think my camera froze. Let me switch my camera over here.
Okay. Do you need me to talk for a second while you do it?
Possibly, yeah. Why don't you go for that?
Well, I'll just keep talking for a second. Like I said, they flipped from Notre Dame and Georgia players. They went after guys that were really highly interested in Alabama, going 3-9 last season. I'm not saying UCLA is going to make the playoffs, although I do think they are a dark horse team that teams need to be on the lookout for with them. But I would not be surprised if this record flipped next season, and this team that was 3-9 last season could possibly go 8-4. Dare I say 9-3 next year? Zach, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you look at the schedule, they could easily be 4-0. Like, they go to Cal. That's not an easy game going to Cal. But then San Diego State, Purdue, at Maryland. Like, at Maryland could be tricky. It's September. Maryland's different in September. But then the other 2/3 of their schedule at Oregon, that's tough. But then Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Nevada all at home, at Minnesota, Illinois at home, at Michigan, USC at home. Like, for as far as Big Ten schedules go, like, that's a pretty manageable schedule. It's sure as heck a lot more manageable than the past couple of years. And
yeah, I wouldn't say it's easy, but I would say it's favorable.
Yeah, it's way more manageable than what they've had. But you're right. It's not easy. But they avoid Ohio State, they avoid Penn State, they avoid Indiana. Like, that's pretty good to avoid those 3 teams. I think that momentum is, like, you saw it with Cignetti, and it's going to be impossible to not compare UCLA to Indiana and Chesney to Cignetti, which I'm not saying you should expect the same result, but here's, I think, the test. Does UCLA build momentum early, and does that parlay greater momentum, right? Because you can have some momentum. Like, I feel like Nebraska is maybe a good counterpoint here. Like, I think Matt Rule There was a lot of momentum early. Seemed like there was some traction in recruiting. They had Dylan Raiola, 5-star. This is the anchor of their class, but they just never took off. And I think part of the reason why they never took off is because they ran into the Cignetti buzzsaw, ironically. But I don't think you can go like 6-6 and like get blown out by USC and Michigan and be like, oh, like see what Chesney's building here. But if they go 7-5 and they're competitive with USC, 8-4, like if they're competitive with Oregon, Nico looks like a brand new quarterback. I really do think you start to build momentum. You start to build trust. You start to say, okay, Chesney's plan is working. That's when you start to get more NIL. You start to get players who are more bought in, and then you start stacking classes. That's when I think UCLA can really supercharge this thing. So I think the first month and a half actually could be really telling, because if they're like 2-2 and barely beating Purdue, then you might see some people getting off the train because you're like, is this thing really going to work? But here's the thing. I think Chesney, he comes across as competent. He's coming from a very good pedigree, like coming from the Cignetti tree. It's not like Deshaun Foster, which I love Deshaun Foster. I feel like he was put in a position to fail because he was the next guy to come in after Chip Kelly left him high and dry. Like, I hate to say that about Kelly, but that's what happened. Deshaun Foster didn't know anything about running a program. Chesney has a plan. Chesney is ready to go. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, like, this is the impact of hiring somebody who gives you like faith, who gives you hype, right? Chip Kelly was not giving UCLA any hype, regardless of them having some good stuff under him. Like, they did have, I think they were 9-3 with Dorian Thompson Robinson that one season. So like they did have that, but there was just never any hype with Chip Kelly. Bob Chesney, his history coming in from James Madison, them making the playoffs last season, being 3-9 last year, bringing in his guys with the coordinators, Dean Kennedy, Colin Hischler, the recruiting class now. Like this gives you so much more hype and a whole lot more belief. And like I said, kind of at the outgate, like UCLA has more donors. Yes, that athletic department has been a bit of a garbage fire here recently. Like, they still have a whole lot of rich donors. They still have a whole lot of people that if you put enough hype there, if you put enough, excitement around the program, people are going to donate. And it's proof of why, if you just get people excited more than anything else, it can bring your program so much higher. And I don't think 6-6 is going to make anybody excited next season. Dave here says they'll be good at 500. I think they will be too. I don't think it's going to bring the hype that they need, but I definitely think it brings the improvement and says, look, we're growing this thing. We can get to 8-4 next season. We can get to 9-3 the next season and be playoff contenders, especially if you get to a 16 or a 2014 playoff at some point.
Yeah. I go back and think about what Cignetti said when I think it was a 60 Minutes interview where he talked about, I needed the fan base to buy into this place again. And I think, to your point, Chesney doesn't just have to win over recruits. So like the recruits are starting to buy in, but can he get the entire culture to really buy in, and not just players, but coaching staff, athletic director, fan base, everybody for every level of the organization and everybody who supports the organization. Are they on the same page?
And that was exactly what Cignetti did at Indiana, right? Yeah. He came in brash, he came in arrogant, and he backed it up, And if you know anything about that Indiana fan base, you know that those basketball fans, they always wanted that with their basketball team. They always wanted to go back to the days of brash, arrogant, we know we're better than you. And they've had that somewhat in some ways, never quite the dominance that they had back under Bob Knight or anything like that. But Cignetti gave that to that program. And then you had Mark Cuban coming out there like, I'm not saying Bob Chesney needs to go out to a basketball game and say like, Ohio State and Michigan suck or anything like that, or say USC sucks or something. Like, I don't recommend Chesney go out and do that just because it can go downhill if it doesn't work for you. But I just think it shows how much hype and excitement and backing up stuff in your very first season can just do so much for you. If he can sell a 500 season as improvement, keep us up, we're going to keep riding this hype train, then go for it. But I think more than anything, a guy like Bob Chesney could do that more than a guy like Chip Kelly could.
Yep, I agree.
So if you look at some of these recruits here, Khalil, like I said, Khalil Terry, 4-star safety, flipped from Notre Dame. Paul Moola, 4-star safety, California talent. George Tayo, I believe I'm saying that right. 4-star defensive lineman, top 100 nationally. Jackson Roper, somebody Ohio State really, really wanted. UCLA is stealing another player from Ohio State. Sorry, Ohio State fans, but happened with Sahir West out of the transfer portal. Now it's happening with Jackson Roper on the offensive line. Jerry Outhouse Jr. being stolen from Georgia, essentially flipping there. And the last name on there, I know it's a 3-star, Zach, but Deuce Jones-Drew. That name ring any bells for you there?
Maurice Jones-Drew, who is such a good player, by the way.
He was. So Deuce is only a 3-star, but he has a local talent, and he is a big name that'll be coming in, and definitely get the fans excited that way as well. McKibben and Fairs as well. I don't want to skip over anybody, but I mean, listen, USC is going to be really good at recruiting. I'm not trying to knock USC. Final Natties is saying that they added a 4-star defensive lineman as well. Look, USC is going to be fantastic at recruiting. We know this now, but it's just the kind of the story of like California overall. These California schools are really getting into the recruiting scene, and it kind of just shows how much it did help them out by coming over from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, because you just have so much of a better opportunity with this, so much more hype and excitement. Zach, it's huge for UCLA.
Well, and just think who they're taking recruits from, or who they're competing with. Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama. Like, they are competing and winning recruits from these schools. Like, that's a big deal, because it'd be different if they're taking recruits from, like, no offense, but like Nebraska or Wisconsin, which is kind of who we expect them to compete with. But they're taking recruits from national championship contenders and playoff contenders. Mm-hmm. That matters.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I think it would be one thing if they were just stacking 4-star talent, like that would be good. But to stack the 4-star talent and take the kids away from other blue blood programs and stuff like that, yeah, it's just huge. So, the Chesney effect is working. Hands-on recruiting, elite staff and resources. The snowball, continue that momentum going. How many wins do you think they need to get to keep the momentum going this season, Zach? Let's end it here. How many wins do you think they need this season to keep momentum going?
The floor is 7, I think, because I think Cal, San Diego State, Purdue, Maryland, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Nevada, I think they should be favored in all those games. Maybe not at Cal, but
I think there's going to be a lot of hype for them if they start 5-1. If all they lose is that at Oregon game and they start 5-1.
Yeah. And I think if they get to 7 and then the rest is gravy, right? Like at Minnesota, that's a tougher game. Not sure what to expect with Illinois, but Illinois has to go to them. And then even at Michigan, like, that's a tough game. But Michigan is not Michigan of 2022 and 2023. Like, I know Kyle Whittingham's there. So like, it's different.
I don't think they are 2023 either, but I do feel like they are much closer to what they were in 2016, 2019, stuff like that, which was still a playoff contending team,
Yeah. I think they lose to Michigan. Like, if I picked it today, I think they lose to Michigan. But like, it's much less of a like definitive loss. It's not as much of a definitive loss in my mind as I would have said before this,
Mhm.
before last season, right?
SW Indiana says 5-1 probably ranked. Looking at 5-1 after week 6.
No, because the SEC homers and honks that vote will keep UCLA down because they'll keep saying, "Who have you beaten?"
I wouldn't say it's a guarantee, but I think they would be close. Maryland last season was getting votes to be ranked when they were 4-1.
They'd get votes for
Yeah.
sure. They'd get votes. It honestly, it would depend on how close the Oregon game is
Yeah,
at
that's a good
Oregon.
point.
Yeah.
How close the Oregon one is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they lose by 3 touchdowns, they're not getting ranked. If they lose by a last second field goal, they might get 25th or 24th.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody's picking Cal to win that game at the beginning of the season, but pretty sure UCLA's favored on FanDuel. No, Cal is favored on FanDuel. I apologize. Cal is favored by 1.5. I still think UCLA's got a really good shot at winning that game. Bob Chesney is a much more experienced coach than Taj Lapoy. He's bringing in guys from James Madison and know his system. Like Taj Lapoy is not bringing in a whole bunch of Oregon talent. He's bringing in like the Oregon 2 deep in some areas, but like, yeah, I really like UCLA in that one. I'm not giving anybody betting advice or anything, but I do think the sports book has it wrong there.
Who do you like better at quarterback? Jaron Kewe Sagapatule. I don't know how to say that name, but JKS for Cal or Nico Iamaleava. It's the all name game at quarterback.
Well, it is. Both had tremendous first year starting. Does Sagapatule have a drop off this season like Nico Iamaleava did? I don't think so because he doesn't have Deshaun Foster as his head coach. I think Taj Lapoy is a better coach than Deshaun Foster was, but you're still bringing in a defensive minded guy, and Sagapatule, I wouldn't say that he got too arrogant last season, but last year, I think it was Wilcox did come out and say like, they beat Minnesota, and I think the week after that they were like really, really close with a G6 school or something like that. And he was like, "Yeah, basically we thought our farts didn't stink."
Yeah,
basically what he said.
They lost 34-0 to San Diego State the week after.
That's right. Yeah, they lost. That's right. It wasn't even like close. They lost 34-0. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think Taj Lapoy is going to do that. He's from the Dan Lanning school, so I don't think a Dan Lanning disciple is going to let that happen. But yeah. So. All right. Anything else on UCLA?
No, I think UCLA fans should be excited. I think our boys at Bruin Source over there, I think they're excited, and they absolutely should be.
Did you see UCLA fans going after Josh Pate for his previous tweets?
What did Pate say? What did he do?
I'll have to find. I should have bookmarked it. He said, so this was back in September 15th of last year. Said 90% of the names I've seen mentioned for UCLA search already have better jobs. Many are coordinators. Basically saying that coordinators at a Power 4 level is a better job than UCLA.
Well, he wasn't completely wrong.
I mean, Chip Kelly did leave for a coordinator job at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And he did get hired from the NFL from that, but
well,
I don't know. I think that was more of a reflection on Chip Kelly as a head coach than it was UCLA.
Well, but also I don't think he's just talking about Chip Kelly. I think he's talking about the way you mentioned at the beginning of this segment, the program was in the dumps. Like, and part of that was Kelly's fault, but part of it too, and this is maybe the other side of what we're not talking about, is if you don't get the right coach, you're Wisconsin or you're Purdue. Like, no offense to Barry Odom, but like a lot of people have questions about whether Barry Odom can resurrect Purdue. And like, listen, that might sound ridiculous, but Purdue, like I was just watching, I think at 2002, 2003 Purdue with Kyle Orton. Like, Purdue was legit. 2000 with Drew Brees. Like, Purdue was a legit good program in the Big Ten 25 years ago. And Wisconsin was one of the best programs in the Big Ten, not even 6 or 7 years ago. And
9-4 in 2021.
yeah, so it really does matter where the state of the program is and if the program is going to invest. And no offense to UCLA, but until they hired Bob Chesney, there was nothing there that made you think they're going to invest in this thing. Now they are. So like I get why people would be upset at Pate for making that tweet a year ago or 6 months ago, 9 months ago. But he wasn't wrong. He'd be wrong now.
I think based off the perception of the program at that time, he wasn't wrong. But at the same time, like his follow-up tweet to it was being in a job where you have to beg fans to care or the administration to care is hard enough. At UCLA, you have to do both. I mean, yeah, it looked that way. Perception looked that way, but I think obviously, UCLA administration, at least, we'll see what the fans look like in August, or September, I guess, whenever their season starts. Yeah, I think UCLA showing their administration does care that part was off. So
yeah, but now, you got to get the fan base, and what is hard where they play is not on campus.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Miami, right? Like if you want to come at UCLA for them not having great fan attendance, you got to talk about Miami too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that is a hurdle that Indiana doesn't have to deal with. It's not a hurdle that any other Big Ten school other than I think USC has to deal with. Like you have to get fans there. And Pasadena, I love, my one visit to the Rose Bowl.